The Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland, are known for a captivating array of close encounter reports that blend eerie wilderness, military secrecy, and folkloric elements. One notable incident occurred in Smedjebacken, Sweden, in August 1968. In the province of Dalarna, 11-year-old Benny Magnusson was playing with a group of friends in an abandoned mining area. Having visited the site many times without incident, they felt safe. However, as they headed home, they suddenly spotted white-clad beings approaching from the mine holes. Although they resembled humans, the boys quickly realized they were not, as the figures hovered slightly above the ground. Paralyzed with shock, the boys watched as the beings hovered alongside them. Benny later described them as approximately 2.4 meters tall, 7.8 feet, with round heads, grayish-white skin, large black eyes, and small mouth lines. Each was carrying a white document briefcase. Panic ensued when one boy ran away, prompting the others to flee. Despite their fear, Benny and a friend paused to retrieve a pair of glasses one boy had dropped. At this moment, the beings were only 4 to 5 meters, 13 to 16 feet, away. Benny made eye contact with one, feeling as though it could read his thoughts. After that day, none of the boys returned to the mining area, and memories of the encounter faded over time. Only Benny, Kjell Osling, and Staffan Helander retained vivid memories. Benny would go on to have more UFO sightings, believing his first encounter opened his mind to the phenomenon. He eventually became a ufologist, convinced that humanity will one day encounter these beings en masse, fundamentally changing our understanding of life in the universe. Source: UFO Information Number 1, 1995. Edstrufholm, Jutland, Western Denmark, August 1957. In August 1957, a 15-year-old boy harvesting barley in a field near Edstrufholm experienced a remarkable encounter. Around 2 to 3 p.m. on a calm, cloudy day, he suddenly felt watched. Upon looking around, he discovered a strange gray metallic, oval-shaped craft about 35 meters, 115 feet, away. The craft was approximately 2 meters high and 2.5 meters wide, resting on 3 landing legs. In front of it stood 2 humanoids, each about 90 centimeters tall, 3 feet, dressed in tight, dark green, rubbery suits without visible fasteners. They had transparent dome helmets with 2 rear-facing antennae, and their faces resembled ordinary humans with brown skin. Shocked, the boy observed the beings for a few minutes before they suddenly turned to look at him. A blinding flash of light followed, and both the humanoids and the craft vanished in seconds. Although the encounter lasted only about 5 minutes and was silent, a typical Oz Factor experience. He noticed the vegetation was bent where craft had landed but saw no imprints. Afterwards, he felt disbelief about the incident and only told his family, fearing ridicule from friends. The case came to Sufoy's attention years later. In 1972, after a UFO lecture in Virum, a woman helped investigator X. P. Madsen contact the now-adult witness. He described his experience calmly and appeared credible, leading to several meetings with the investigator. Sources: UFO NYT number 6 1975, https:// Denmark, DK/UFO/ the Edstrufholm, landing 2/ Lappeenranta Vilmenstrand, Eastern Finland, March 1970. Pauli Paitnairanen, born in 1938, grew up in Lappeenranta near the Russian border. A passionate jazz saxophonist and sheet metal worker, he was active in the music scene until he died in 2019. One snowy night in March 1970, after a late gig, Pauli was driving home around 2 a.m. when he spotted a small figure standing at an intersection about 200 meters ahead. As he approached, he saw 4 more similar beings, 3 on one side and 1 behind them near the military barracks. These humanoids stood approximately 1 meter, 3 feet tall, with large heads and glossy, green-colored clothing. Their long, oval, glowing blue eyes deeply unsettled Pauli. After observing them for about half a minute, panic struck, and he quickly turned his car around to take a different route home. The next day, a newspaper reported a round melt mark on the road where he had seen the beings, but Pauli chose not to disclose his encounter, sharing it only with fellow band members, leaving their belief in question. Source: Mervi Virtanen. Sumanimiami, Eastern Finland, June 25, 1992. At 9 p.m. on a summer evening, a 54-year-old woman was driving to her vacation cottage in Ristina along a narrow country road. The dusky light illuminated the forested area, filled with pine trees and underbrush. She passed a few residential houses, but encountered a few other cars. As she crested a hill, she noticed movement in front of her. Initially thinking it was an animal, she soon realized it was two small humanoid creatures, one squatting the road and the other by the side. They were so focused that they didn't notice her until she was very close. When they spotted the car, the humanoid by the ditch jumped away, while the one in the road froze. The woman didn't have time to stop and accidentally drove over the creature, hearing a whining sound beneath her car. She quickly braked and got out to check, but found no trace of the creature, only a piece of plastic that had torn from her car. She described the beings as short, standing between 60 centimeters and 90 centimeters tall, 2 to 3 feet, with round heads, large dark eyes, and dressed in gray overalls with black belts. This sighting adds to numerous reports of similar small creatures in Karelia. Was the being she encountered a typical gray, or something else? Evidence is lacking, and we must decide whether to believe her account. Source: Mervi Virtanen. Lauhala Village, Western Finland, December 14, 1972. In the early 1970s, Finland experienced numerous strange humanoid sightings, including a goblin-like creature in Imjärvi and other mysterious encounters. One notable incident occurred on December 14, 1972, when farmer Veikko Kivioja was driving home at 2:30 a.m. after visiting his neighbor, Seppo Oja. As he navigated a snowy forest road, he spotted 3 lights on the left side, initially mistaking them for another car. However, he soon realized these were 3 human-like beings, illuminated by a strange shimmer of light, moving toward a nearby logging clearing. Deciding to bring back a witness, Veikko returned to Seppo's house. Although skeptical, Seppo joined him and was astonished to find the creatures still there, accompanied by a glowing sphere that brightened the entire forest. After about 10 minutes, the light faded and the beings disappeared. Hours later, dairy farmer Heimo Matala was driving his tractor 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles, away when he spotted a bright green or hovering about 1 to 2 meters, 3 to 6 feet, above the ground, gracefully moving along the road. Heimo accelerated and saw it pass right behind him. The encounters raised questions. Had Veikko and Seppo been drinking too much vodka, or did they witness something real? Heimo's similar experience adds a layer of credibility to their claims. Source: Heikki Virtanen. Gershoge, Zealand, Denmark. March 6, 2000, in a small village near the Roskilde Fjord, a man was preparing his garden for summer when he noticed a beam of black light focused on a nearby field. Intrigued, he moved closer and caught a scent of burnt grass. Looking up, he saw a white light above and then observed several spherical objects that resembled robots, each with small arms and clawed hands, floating just above the ground. For about 4 minutes, these metallic spheres searched the area, leaving behind the smell of burnt grass. After completing their task, they moved toward the black beam and disappeared. The white light faded, replaced by a blue light that accelerated upward and vanished into the sky. This unusual event involved what seemed to be alien robots, although it went uninvestigated by UFO researchers. No evidence was found, and no one else in the area seemed to notice it. Source: Nordic. Forsheda, southern Sweden, January 28, 1979. Lars Eriksson, not his real name, worked as a repairman at the Forsheda rubber factory, responsible for maintaining the heating boilers and fans. On this Sunday evening, he began his shift at 5:15 p.m. By 6 p.m., the steam boiler stopped unexpectedly. Surprised, Lars checked the valves in the electrical cabinet but found nothing wrong. Then, the power went out, affecting the entire village of Forsheda. The blackout lasted only a short while, and when the power returned at 6:15 p.m., the boilers and fans restarted on their own, which Lars found impossible. After ensuring everything was working, Lars headed to the pump house, about 700 meters away, to restart the cooling water pump. Halfway there, he spotted a small, dark, figure about 25 to 30 meters away. Initially thinking it was a young boy, he questioned how the child got into the locked factory area. As he approached, the figure raised its hand, and Lars returned the gesture, but he suddenly found himself unable to move. When the figure turned around, Lars realized it might not be human. The being moved in an unusual, hovering manner and took a massive leap, covering 1.5 meters 5 feet in one bound. It was about 1 meter 3 feet tall and wore a square helmet that reached its shoulders. Due to the poor lighting, Lars couldn't see it clearly, but it appeared to have a forward-bent posture. Upon reaching what seemed to be a landing site, Lars heard a sizzling sound and his paralysis lifted. The being jumped up, appearing to hover in the air as if entering an invisible craft. The sizzling grew into a strong, whining noise before the humanoid took off, gliding between the trees and disappearing into the sky like a tiny dot. When the alien vanished with its craft, Lars examined the footprints left in the snow. The humanoid appeared to have shoes with groove soles that were wider at the front. The footprints were approximately 16 centimeters, 6.3 inches, long, and the tracks were 8 millimeters, 0.3 inches, deep. Lars noticed that the being seemed afraid of a frozen piece of rubber nearby, cautiously circling it before finally kicking it gently. Where the invisible UFO had landed, Lars found 4 tracks in a perfect square, which he assumed were made by the craft's landing gears. However, a snowplow soon arrived and cleared the area, erasing any evidence. The driver confirmed seeing strange tracks, but didn't think much of them. This case is one of many UFO encounters with only one witness. While some may believe Lars' story, it lacks concrete proof of extraterrestrial presence. When he shared his experience, no one, not even his wife, believed him. As a result, he faced teasing at work and gained a reputation in the village as the man who saw UFOs. Ironically, the harassment he suffered was most pronounced within his church community, where acceptance should have prevailed. Source: UFO Information Jubileums number 1969 to 1979. Espoo, Southern Finland, summer of 1987. A female student living with her parents outside Helsinki woke up one night after midnight, sensing something calling her. Feeling hungry, she went to the kitchen for a sandwich and entered the living room, only to see 3 strange beings outside the glass patio door. The creatures were about 1 meter 3 feet tall, with large black eyes, bald heads, and thin bodies. They wore tight-fitting dark green or blue-gray jumpsuits. Behind them, a metallic, oval-shaped craft about 3 meters 9 feet wide sat in the garden, flashing yellow and red lights. Paralyzed with fear, she stared at them for a minute before fleeing upstairs, hiding under her blankets. The next morning, she searched her backyard for traces of the event, but found nothing unusual. However, in the following years, the grass refused to grow where the craft had rested. Source: Mervy Vertanen. Hillerød, Eastern Denmark, October 10, 2002. In Hillerød, a 25-year-old woman experienced a frightening encounter one late autumn evening. After hosting a friend for dinner, she walked her to the nearby bus stop with her dog. After saying goodbye, she walked home at 11:13 p.m. 10 minutes into her walk, she noticed a creature about 25 meters, 75 feet away. It was about 150 centimeters, 5 feet tall, with gray-brown skin and large eyes. Suddenly, it emitted a terrifying metallic sound. Stunned, the woman and her dog stood frozen until she broke free from her paralysis and ran home in fear. Once inside, she described the encounter to her boyfriend, trembling with terror. Despite her experiences with the supernatural, this was the most frightened she had ever been. What had she truly seen that night? Was it a person in costume or a real unknown being? Turku, Finnish West Coast, March 1954 ***. This well-known contactee case in Finland was recounted by former Finnish Air Force mechanic Osmo T. Lean in a 1992 TV documentary. The events occurred when he was a child living outside Turku. One night, while playing with his brother, they saw an aluminum-colored disc hovering above a nearby field. They estimated it was about 5 to 7 meters, 15 to 21 feet in diameter. Suddenly, the craft sped toward them. prompting the boys to leap into a ditch to avoid being hit. As it passed overhead, the disc released a white, sand-like quartz substance before disappearing into the trees. A few nights later, Osmo was asleep in the living room while his family was also resting. Around midnight, he awoke to voices speaking a foreign language and saw three strange men outside. They were short, had a slightly oriental appearance, and wore brown velvet-like overalls. Believing they might be lost Russians, he opened the door and they entered. The youngest man asked if Osmo was the boy who built radios. Osmo nodded, and the stranger examined his radios. One of the men, who appeared to be around 35 to 40 years old, retrieved a small device that resembled a flat TV screen and placed it on the table. The oldest man kept watch by the window. During the interview, Osmo realized he could understand the men when facing them, but heard only murmurs when he turned away. The younger man showed clips of Osmo's future, revealing scenes from his life, including a tragic accident that would lead to his death in middle age. Osmo attempted to interact with the device, but was reprimanded. After the TV show ended, the men placed something on his head for an experiment, which felt like electric shocks, putting him in a dreamlike state. They informed him they were from a distant planet at the edge of the galaxy, and that he was chosen to be one of their contacts on Earth before they left and vanished into the night. After a few visits, Osmo's contact with the strangers ended due to disturbing traits discovered by them. However, he sporadically met with them throughout his life, even receiving a private flight demonstration of their saucer, which he claimed reached Mach 35. Osmo T. Lean died in 1992 under mysterious circumstances. Some believe he had a tragic car accident. Others think he was abducted, while some say he drank himself to death. A related event occurred when a woman named Helwig in Finland reported seeing an aluminum-colored disc land on a road. She encountered three beings, a bald man and two women dressed in brown coveralls. They communicated using a musical language and telepathy, inviting her to see their craft. They claimed to be from a planet called Eerie and ruled by a monarch. After this encounter, Helwig experienced unexplained mental issues that no doctor could diagnose or treat. The island of Fyn, Denmark, July 16, 1982, one of Denmark's notable humanoid encounters occurred on the morning of July 16, 1982, when a 15-year-old boy was cycling to a summer job at a garden center in Broby around 4:30 a.m. As he rounded a bend near a grassy field, he spotted something shining about 50 to 60 meters, 150 to 180 feet away. Curious, he approached the object, which appeared to be two white glowing plates stacked together, measuring 3 meters 9 feet in diameter and 2 meters 6 feet high, with a smooth surface and no distinguishing features. As he got closer, he noticed four small beings, around 60 centimeters 2 feet tall, collecting either soil or grass with dark bags. A fifth being stood by an open hatch of the craft, watching the others. The beings had large heads and pointed ears, with gray-white or pale yellow skin, and were dressed in gray or silvery jumpsuits. Suddenly, the leader noticed the boy and signaled the others to retreat into the craft. It took off with a hissing sound, becoming so bright that the boy had to shield his eyes. The UFO quickly disappeared toward Odense. After the incident, the boy examined the landing site, noting the grass was pressed down, but found no other traces. When he arrived at work, he told his boss, who dismissed his account. The case was later investigated by 4 experts from Sufoy in 1983. They found no evidence of the craft, as the field had been replanted with barley. The boy's description of the being's height was deemed credible, and while he initially couldn't recall the exact date, details led to a conclusion around July 16th. He appeared trustworthy, and his parents insisted he was not prone to fantasizing. In summary, this intriguing case remains unsolved, raising many unanswered questions. On May 3, 1996. In the spring of 1996, Karen Bengtson and her adult son Hans went for an evening walk with Karen's 4 Drever hunting dogs. After arriving at a nearby forest, one dog named Betty broke free and ran into the trees. Despite searching for hours, they couldn't find her. At midnight, they spotted a strange light about 100 meters, 300 feet away, near an old rest house. The vehicle, resembling a Jeep, had 3 dim lights, 2 normal and 1 larger, placed lower to the ground. Sensing something was off, they chose not to investigate further and drove away to continue their search for Betty. Later, while returning after hearing barking, they noticed the vehicle again. Just as they approached, it suddenly flared with a bright glow. Karen saw a glowing figure in a chair hovering 4 to 5 meters, 12 to 15 feet, above the ground, while Hans only saw the light. Frightened, they hurried back to their car, with their dogs barking wildly. Curious about the light and still concerned for Betty, Karen returned alone around 3 a.m. The vehicle was still there, but no figure was visible. After searching for Betty, she heard barking at 5:30 a.m. coming from the rest area. When she arrived, she found the car stuck in muddy ground where the object had been, while the surrounding soil was hard. The next day, she contacted the local UFO association, and Gudrun Anderson confirmed that no other vehicles had been in the area recently, as there were no tracks in the grass or soil at the site. A week later, Karen was visited by her grandson Michael, 12 years old, and he wanted to see the place where Karen and Hans had their encounter with the unknown. So they went there. Arriving at the rest house, Michael found a beautiful stone. As he picked it up, they both heard a loud bang from the rest house. It sounded like someone had thrown a large rock against the wall. Both got scared and they got into the car and drove away. On the way home, Michael said, "Grandma, the stone is trembling." Karen picked it up and also felt how the stone vibrated. When they were home, the stone ended up on the steps to the front door, and there it remained for a long time, and the vibrations quickly died out just a few days later. There is no answer to what it was that Karen and Hans saw that night, and what she and her grandchild experienced a week later. But Karen herself claimed that it was not aliens they saw, but something from a parallel reality or other energies, and she believed that this phenomenon had to do with electromagnetism. She thought that since she was hypersensitive to electricity, she might therefore see more of the phenomenon than Hans. Maybe one day we will find out if there is anything in Karen's theory, but until then, this is yet another of many unsolved UFO cases in Sweden. Source: UFO Sweden, UFO Aktuelt number 4, 1996, UFO NYT number 3, 1997. Järvenpää, Southern Finland, summer 1956. This case is a notable CE3 incident from the farmlands outside Järvenpää, near Helsinki, involving beings that resembled the Greys. A 15-year-old girl was sleeping in the main farmhouse while her brother was in a nearby storage shed. In the middle of the night, she awoke to find two humanoids with large eyes and gray jumpsuits in her bedroom. Terrified, she pretended to be asleep but observed them as they curiously examined her alarm clock before moving into the living room to tamper with a grandfather clock. After some time, the beings left the house. The girl crept to a window and saw one of them holding an alarm clock at the storage shed, while the other emerged from inside. Remarkably, both creatures began to bounce like rabbits as they moved toward a field where a mysterious, brightly lit object was waiting. They jumped into the craft, which then flew straight up into the night sky. The next morning, all the clocks in the house showed incorrect times, ranging from 12 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. In the years that followed, nothing grew in the area where the craft had landed. Source: Mervi Virtanen.